these days, transhumanism has a sibling. It's another social movement that was born in Oxford and actually caught fire in Silicon Valley, and it's called Effective Altruism. Now, effective altruism aims to figure out how to do the most good possible for the most people, which sounds pretty nice. And when it started out a dozen years ago, the movement was mostly concerned with the biggest problems of today, like global poverty or global health problems. And effective altruists researched effective ways to help others. There's a little fly here who's very excited about it. Thankfully, it's not a mosquito, because one of the main problems that effective altruists are concerned with is malaria, for example. So they really researched, what are the most effective malaria charities we could donate to? What are the ways that we can maybe give cash directly to people in extreme poverty? And they said that their approach is rooted in secular reason and evidence, because they were using data, quantitative data, to find the charities that do the most good, that'll give you the biggest bang for your charitable buck. Yet, effective altruism actually mirrors religion in a lot of ways. Functionally, because it brings together a community built around a shared vision of moral life. Structurally, it's got a hierarchy of prophet leaders, canonical texts, holidays, and rituals. And aesthetically, it promotes tithing and it favors asceticism. But most importantly for our purposes, it offers an eschatology. Effective altruism's eschatology comes in the form of its most controversial idea, long-termism, which Elon Musk has described as a close match for my philosophy. It argues that the best way to help the most people is to focus not on present problems like malaria, but on the future. The reasoning here amounts to moral math. So right now we have around 8 billion people on our planet, but in the future, many, many, many more billions of people could exist, right? If you look at the entire future that could be ahead of us. And if you believe that all humans count equally, regardless of where or when they were born, you have to think about the impacts of our actions on all their lives. Since there are far more people to affect in the future, it follows that the impacts that matter most are those that will affect future humans. So according to this logic, the best thing you can do is focus on ensuring that humanity will survive far into the future, like millions of years from now, and get to enjoy rich lives rather than going extinct. And here's where we start to get the answer to that question about why technologists are so set on building AGI, artificial general intelligence. To effective altruists and long-termists, just sticking with narrow AI, the kind that might help us with curing diseases or tackling climate change, that's not an option. Take, for example, William MacAskill, the Oxford philosopher known as the reluctant prophet of effective altruism and long-termism. He's kind of the poster boy for this movement. In his 2022 book, What We Owe the Future, he explains why he thinks a plateauing of technological advancement is just unacceptable. He writes, "A period of stagnation could increase the risks of human extinction and permanent collapse." And he cites fellow travelers of his in the effective altruism world, who estimate that the probability of human extinction through risks like rogue AI or engineered pandemics over the next century is 1 in 6. So they basically think we're playing Russian roulette with humanity's future. Other fellow travelers in effective altruism argue that we're living at the hinge of history, or the most important century, a special time in the history of humanity when we could either flourish like never before or bring about our own extinction. And Will MacAskill, like Elon Musk, suggests in his book that a good way to avoid extinction is to settle on other planets, so we aren't keeping all our eggs in one planetary basket. You might have heard Elon Musk say, oh, we gotta colonize Mars, right? We gotta get humans out there in the stars. But for Will MacAskill, the poster boy for effective altruism, this is only half the case for what he calls the moral case for space settlement. The other half is that we should be trying to make future human civilization as big and utopian as possible. As MacAskill's Oxford colleague Nick Bostrom has argued, the colonization of the universe would give us the area and resources with which to run gargantuan numbers of digital simulations of humans living happy lives. The more space, the more happy digital humans. Fun phrase, they actually talk about tiling the universe with Computronium, by which they mean covering every single little bit of space in the whole universe with digital infrastructure that could be running these digitally uploaded human mind so that all these like digital humans can be enjoying all this happiness and well-being. And they think that's a really great idea. To them, this is where the vast majority of moral value lies, not in the kind of teeny little present on Earth, but in this vast future in heaven. Sorry, I meant in the virtual afterlife. Not religious at all. When we put all these ideas together and boil them down, we get a basic proposition, 3 simple sentences, okay? 1, we may not have much time until life as we know it is over. So 2, we need to place a bet on something that can save us. And 3, since the stakes are so high, we should ante up and go all in on this bet. Okay. We here are all, I think it's safe to say, students of religion. And as a student of religion, you might immediately recognize this for what it is: apocalyptic logic. Transhumanists, effective altruists, and long-termists have inherited the view that the end times are nigh, and that technological progress is our best shot at moral progress. For people operating within this logic, it seems really natural to pursue AGI. Even though they view AGI as a top existential risk, they believe we can't afford not to build it, given its potential to catapult humanity out of this precarious, earthbound adolescence, which they think will surely end any minute, and into a flourishing interstellar adulthood, where we can have so many happy people and so much moral value. On this logic, of course we ought to march forward technologically, because that means marching forward morally, right? We can have more well-being, more happy humans. But I think it's worth taking a second to ask ourselves, is this actually rooted in reason and evidence, as effective altruists and long-termists say, or is it rooted in dogma? I think the hidden premise here is technological determinism. And that's basically the idea that even if you and I don't create terrifyingly powerful AGI, the thinking goes, somebody else will do it. So why should we stop ourselves from getting in on the action? OpenAI's CEO, Sam Altman, really exemplifies this belief that tech will inevitably march forward. He wrote on his blog a few years ago that, quote, "Unless we destroy ourselves first, superhuman AI is going to happen." Why? He says, as we have learned, scientific advancement eventually happens if the laws of physics do not prevent it. To which I just want to say, have we learned that? Like, I personally don't see any evidence to suggest that anything that can be invented necessarily will be invented. And pardon my French here, but my favorite quote about this comes from the AI researcher Katja Grace, who memorably wrote, "Consider a machine that sprays shit in our eyes. We can technologically do that, but probably nobody has ever built that machine," right? So it seems to me like more likely that people tend to pursue innovations when they have very powerful economic, social, or ideological pressures pushing them to do that. And in the case of AGI fever that has gripped Silicon Valley, recycled religious ideas in the garb of transhumanism, effective altruism, long-termism, have supplied the social and ideological pressures. And as for the economic, profit-making pressure, I think that's always operative in Silicon Valley.